Hi, I'm Linda Campbell, and I've been a hypnotherapist since 1999. If you are a parent with children at home during the coronavirus, I've got some really important information for you and some useful tips for reducing the impact of this event on your child. What I'm going to share with you in this video can help you, the adult, but will have a huge impact if you apply these tips on how your children is affected by this event over time. The tools that I'm going to give you in this video may make the difference between your child developing anxiety or fears or phobias in the long run, or having a sense of resiliency, a sense of safety and security in the world, and a feeling of being supported, heard, and understood. I'm going to give you those tools in a few minutes, but first, let me provide some context. We have two parts to our mind. I like to use the analogy of an iceberg to describe the mind because we're aware of the little part that floats above the water, the conscious mind in this case, but it's all the stuff going on underneath the surface that creates problems for us, the subconscious mind. So your conscious mind is your bank book balancing mind. It is logical, it's rational, it's your thinking mind. It's the part that knows safe from unsafe, healthy from unhealthy. And the conscious mind is separated from the subconscious by a little bit of a filter. Now, as I mentioned, for the sake of this video, I want to focus on the characteristics of the subconscious mind. Your subconscious is completely irrational. It has no ability to reason. It's not the thinking part of your mind. It's the reactive, emotional part of your mind. And it's the part of your mind that runs 90 to 95% of your behavior. Most of what you do over the course of any given day is actually chosen by your subconscious. And its job is self-preservation, keep you safe. That's its number one priority. Now, to better illustrate the qualities of the subconscious mind, I want to share with you a story from my case files. I had a client who came to see me a number of years ago now who had a belly button phobia. She couldn't touch that area, couldn't bathe her belly button, couldn't wear anything with a waistband. And then one day she's out in public and saw somebody else's belly button exposed and had a full-blown panic attack and had to go home. Then one day flipping through TV channels, she saw nudity on TV, again, another full-blown panic attack. Her life was becoming really small. She would get anxious even seeing the TV remote because you never know what's going to happen if you push a button, what's going to be on the screen. So she started doing therapy. She went to a counselor once a week for about a year and wasn't getting any results. So she finally came to see me thinking that maybe hypnosis would help identify whatever was responsible for this irrational fear. And sure enough, it did. This is one of the great things about hypnosis is we can trace back where a behavior began or an emotion began so that we can understand what set the person up to have that reaction. So as it turns out, she's 2 years old, she's in the bathtub fiddling with her belly button, and her mom, who was in the room at that time, made a joke. Oh, you don't want to unscrew that or your legs are going to drop off. And that's all it took. Now, it sounds crazy to the logical mind, but remember, the logical mind wasn't running the majority of her behavior, doesn't run any of our behavior. So if you think about the qualities of the subconscious, completely irrational, and its priority is self-preservation. In this case, the thinking was, if I touch that area, my legs are going to drop off, so I'm not bathing, I'm not wearing a waistband, nothing is going to touch that area, and I don't want to see it happen to anyone else, so I'm just going to stay inside where I'm safe. So again, without her even knowing what was going on consciously, her subconscious was playing this old program that went back to when she was 2 years old, that if somebody touched her belly button or if she touched it, she was going to lose her legs. Makes no sense to the logical mind, doesn't have to. It can still influence your behavior. So what does this have to do with the current situation? Well, up until 2 or 3 years old, all we have is subconscious mind. What this means is that whatever we're told, whatever we're exposed to directly or indirectly gets taken into the subconscious as fact and begins to form our belief system. Again, we don't have a conscious mind when we're little. This is Mother Nature's way of making sure that we're able to learn all of the things that we need to learn in those first few years of our lives. Young children are designed to pick up cues from a parent. So for example, when a baby reaches for something new, it'll look to a parent's face to see the expression on the face. If the parent looks concerned or alarmed, the baby will automatically withdraw its hand. But if the parent looks encouraging, smiling, happy, the baby will read that expression to mean that what it's reaching for is safe, keep on reaching. Before we even know our names, we're learning how to pick up on the cues of other people. So we're taking in messages directly and indirectly from the people in our environment. Directly means the things they actually say to us, but indirectly would include things like your facial expression, your body language, your mood, your behaviors. Children are like tiny little sponges. They're just absorbing everything going on in their environment. And then once they take that into the subconscious, because the subconscious is illogical, it never updates those messages. This is why the belly button client still had an old belief on a subconscious level that if somebody or something touched her belly button, her legs would drop off. So the messages that you're communicating to your children are really key at this time to forming their belief system and affecting their behavior later on. But I'm going to get into that in just a little while. And so it sounds as though we only really need to be concerned about kids who are younger than 2 or 3, but that's not the case. After 2 or 3, we begin to develop our conscious mind. So we're now able to reason, we're able to ask questions, we're using our logic. This is when kids are constantly saying, why? They're beginning to figure things out themselves. So what that means is that filter between the conscious mind and the subconscious mind is in place. They're not just taking in everything you tell them, they're beginning to reason. However, there are times when that filter just opens up and messages get through again. This happens when we are around a person we perceive to be an authority, a person who is in a position of trust, so a parent, for example. And it also happens when we're emotional or overwhelmed, which in a time like this, when people are scared and anxious and uncertain, can occur really easily. So kids are taught to respect what trusted people or people in a position of authority say. They're taught things like respect your elders, listen to your teacher, big people know what they're talking about. And so, because of the role that you play in your child's life, you're their first teacher. You're probably the first person who ever told them the grass is green, cats have kittens, cows go moo. So simply because of the position that you play in their lives, the authority that you hold, you have a huge impact on how you're sort of programming your own child's mind. And so what does this mean? Bottom line, children, regardless of their age, are picking up on your direct and indirect messages. Your body language, your emotional state, what you're saying and what you're doing are forming their belief system, and it could possibly be forever. Parents are essentially the engineers of their children's belief system and of their children's behavior, because so much of what we do is driven by our beliefs. So how you as a parent handle this situation can make or break your child's sense of safety, resiliency, their level of anxiety. What you say or do, how you handle this crisis, informs who your child will be in the future. Again, this is an unprecedented event. I see so many clients who went through the Depression or a recession or had parents in the war, who had parents with PTSD, and their parents' behavior shaped them one way or the other. For example, if you have a parent who has PTSD, who is anxious themselves, because children are observing their parents and taking in their messages, direct or indirect, often they develop their own anxiety, those children, because if the person that they look up to see how to act in the world is acting anxious, the child learns, well, there must be something to be anxious about. So it's really important that we handle this as parents in a way that creates in our children the sense of resiliency and safety and security that they require. And so let's get into the tips. So the first tip is to be mindful of how you're acting. Again, kids are learning how to be in the world by watching your example. If you have your own worries or fears, make sure that you're dealing with them in private. If you're talking about your worries or fears in front of your children, even if you think they're not paying attention, they're absorbing those worries and fears. I often have clients who come to see me who have OCD or anxiety, and they'll say to me, maybe it's genetic. I had a parent who had OCD or anxiety. Well, maybe it's genetic, or maybe you grew up in an environment where somebody was constantly telling you the world was unsafe and that you have to do these rituals in order to feel safe. And because you believe your parent, you took those things on board yourself. So as a parent, if you have your own worries or fears about what's going on in the world, I really recommend dealing with them in private, however that looks for you. Maybe it means taking your thoughts to a journal to work them out. Maybe it means sitting down with your partner or getting online with a friend and talking after your kids are asleep when they can't hear and pick up on your messages. Maybe it's going for a walk privately to think about what's going on for you, but finding some way to deal with them so that you're not communicating them around your kids. I recommend getting support, whether it's actually doing therapy or counseling. This thankfully is something we can still do online, or making social connections. This is a time to reach out and take advantage of all the supports that are out there for you. And of course, take care of yourself. Even in times of crises, maybe especially in times of crises, our self-care is really important. We got to stay sane. And so do those things that you know help keep you balanced and stable. Get fresh air, get exercise, eat healthfully. Do you have hobbies or activities or projects that you can indulge yourself with? Find things to do that keep you balanced and stable. I think of this like a bank account. If we've got something that's a drain on our bank account, what's going on in the world right now certainly is, we need to be making deposits into that account or we're going to end up depleted. So what are the things that make a deposit in your particular account? It could be different things for different people. I know if I'm doing something that feels like I'm helping in some way, I feel so much better. Maintaining a little bit of normalcy for me really helps out. Taking a nice hot shower, playing with my cat for a little while. He has no idea about what's going on in the world and he's just full of playfulness. And it helps remind me to play a little bit myself. So take some time to think about what are your self-care activities? What are the deposits you can be making into your own account right now so that you're more balanced and stable? Because what you're doing, how you're handling this, how you're feeling is being communicated to your kids one way or the other. Another thing to remember is that language is really, really, really important. So for example, it's better to say to your kids, we're going to stay inside to make sure we're healthy than we can't go out because it's dangerous out there. Look at the language there. The first message communicates we're staying inside because we want to be healthy. We're communicating to the kid we're being healthy. But if we say it's dangerous outside, we're communicating to that kid that outside is dangerous. Now remember, the messages that you give can have a long-lasting impact. The subconscious is illogical. It doesn't go through those messages. It doesn't go, this is no longer the case. It's safe out in the world now. The subconscious has no reasoning power. Once you have communicated to your kids, it's dangerous out there in the world. Even once this situation passes and it's no longer dangerous, that message can still linger on a subconscious level. Think of the belly button example that I gave you earlier. For 20-something odd years, she had stored on in her subconscious mind that touching your belly button is threatening, even though she knows better rationally, and even though almost 3 decades of time have gone by, that message was still active on a subconscious level. So it's better to say something like, we are washing our hands to stay safe, than if we don't wash our hands, we're going to get sick. We want to use positive language as much as possible. So focus on the desired result, staying healthy, keeping safe, instead of the negative result. We're trying not to get sick. It's a dangerous, unsafe world. We want to use positive language as much as possible because those little sponges around you are taking it in. And because our kids are taking in what we're saying, we really want to make sure that we're giving a sense of hope and taking time to intentionally instill positive messages. So you might want to, at bedtime or just even over the course of the day, share stories with a positive, hopeful meaning. Kids pick up on the moral of a story, so read or watch stories of how the good guy wins, overcoming hardship, all that stuff that really imparts into the subconscious of your child the kind of messaging you want them to hold on to. Take advantage of natural trance states. So we go in and out of trance states all day long. All that's happening when I put somebody into hypnosis is I'm lowering their brainwave levels. This happens when we fall asleep at night. It happens when we're absorbed in a project. It happens if we're doing something on automatic pilot. And kids spend a lot of time in that deeper brainwave level state. Anytime we're doing something imaginative, anytime we're playing, anytime we're creating, because the subconscious is the creative mind, we're coming from that part of the mind. So here's a sneaky little trick. Look for times when your kids are in a natural trance state. It might be as they're drifting off to sleep at night or when they're still in that sleepy state in the morning. It might be when they're focused on coloring or making a puzzle or doing some activity where they're really engaged. When they're in that natural trance state, just make some positive statements. This is going to be over and everything's going to go back to normal. We're staying healthy, we're taking care of one another, we're going to be okay, whatever it happens to be. Remember, those positive messages, whether you're saying them or in the form of a story or what have you, are getting into the subconscious mind. And along the same lines, just as we want to instill more positive messaging, we want to limit their contact with negative messaging. Remember, kids are taking in messaging when they're emotional, when it comes from somebody trusted, from the media, from authorities. So don't watch the news in front of your kids, right? We have the ability to process what's in the news and think about it critically, but kids are just taking it into their subconscious. Don't discuss scary scenarios in front of the kids. Again, if you need to talk about what you're going to do in terms of your work or your health or whatever it happens to be, do that in private so that your kids aren't picking up on it. And another really important tip is to check in with your kids. How a situation is handled makes all the difference. I work with a lot of people who have PTSD, a lot of people who have had traumatic events in their childhood. And one thing that I've noticed over and over and over is that if a person feels heard, they feel understood, they feel like somebody cared about them, they feel like there was somebody there to support them, there was somebody on their side, that event doesn't have nearly the impact than if the person feels left alone to deal with it. And so take time to ask your children how they're feeling. Ask what's on their mind. Don't say, "Are you scared?" Because again, the implication there is they should be. Just ask, "How are you doing today? What are you thinking about what's going on in the world?" So be supportive and attentive. You are their safety person. You're the person that they look to for support and information and comfort. So make sure that even in these challenging times, you're taking time to cuddle your little people, to be there for them, to check in with them, to make sure that they feel heard and understood and supported at this time. And take time to have fun with your kids. I used the analogy earlier of a bank account, right? There's stuff going on in the world that's a drain on our accounts. So let's use this opportunity to have some fun, to make some deposits into that account by putting aside the virus for a little while and just focusing on connection, playfulness, getting to know each other. Think about this. How do you want your kids to remember this time? There's going to be a point where they reflect back on this, whether it's a year down the road or 10 years down the road. This is a life-changing event. How do you want your kids to reflect back? Do you want them to say, "Oh, it was super scary. My parents were really anxious. They were fighting all the time. They were worried. I was feeling really alone and unprotected and unsafe"? Or do you want them to remember, "Yeah, there was a scary situation going on, but this was also the time I got really close to my parents. I felt like they were really there for me. We actually had a lot of fun finding creative ways to spend time together." So get out the puzzles, get out the board games, play a game of Twister, play charades, encourage closeness, get to know each other more, ask questions, find out who these little people in your world are, play with them, make meals together, get them to help in the cleaning and sanitizing, get out in the yard and get some fresh air, throw a frisbee around. Of course, make sure that you're following all of the recommendations we're being given for safety, but this doesn't have to be a hugely stressful time, in that we can counter the stress by finding things to do that are fun, that are engaging, and that provide a pleasant distraction away from all of this terrible news. Now, I hope that those tips have been useful to you. If you need help, of course, a situation like this brings up stuff for us. If you're struggling with anxiety or depression or feelings of uncertainty, you're not quite sure what to do, I would love to help you out. I always offer a free consultation. There's no obligation to go ahead with sessions. It's more of an opportunity for us to get together and chat and see if there's a good fit between us and if I can help you. And so you're welcome to contact me at info@yourauthenticself.ca. If you go onto my website, yourauthenticself.ca, www, you'll find a booking calendar. I'm offering only online hypnotherapy sessions right now for your safety as well as mine. Please reach out if there's some way I can help you. Otherwise, I'm going to keep posting tips and hints and ideas and even hypnosis sessions to help you all for free to deal with what's going on in the world right now. If you have any ideas as to topics you might like me to cover, any particular challenges or struggles that you're dealing with currently, please post them. I would love to hear them and I can respond to them. Thank you so much for taking the time to view this. Bye-bye and stay safe.